welcome back, India. Now, I would like to introduce you to our final speaker for the night, the extremely talented Mr. Karthik Iyappan Gunasekaran, head of global product and engineering at Udemy, business advisor at both Harvard University and MIT. At heart, he is an engineer who is curious about new technologies, and his passion to build new tech products and scaling them to the market motivated him to pursue a career in product development. This was an eye opening experience for him, which made him think about economies of scale and building products with a customer centric perspective. Karthik is leading projects like SaaS based adaptive platforms, use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, 3D environments, AR, VR tech, Internet of Things, and is looking forward to an exciting future where all these technologies can make life better for all of us and take humanity forward. We're really honored to have you with us, sir, and the stage is all yours now.
Thank you, Nidesh. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Great to meet everybody. I don't think I can see how many people are on the other side, but really glad to be speaking to Indian students, especially. And happy 73rd Republic Day anniversary. It's a great milestone for our country. Really honored to be here and presenting to Indian students. I myself was on the other side before going on to being an Indian student, doing my engineering and going on to do my masters and another master's degree, double masters abroad. So really glad to be here. One thing I did want to mention before I start is that the Indian students are really the envy of the world. I think you guys need to know that. The kind of talent that comes out of India, the work ethic, and really the pursuit of knowledge is something unique. For that this general Indian population has that. It's quite evident from the successes that you've seen of the Indian origin immigrants, be it the US, UK, name any country, you're gonna see that, and that really speaks to the strong Indian student talent pool that the country has. Building up India as well as the rest of the world. So that's something we all should be proud about. And again, thank you, Forethought India, for this opportunity to do my small part in inspiring this generation. So let me kick this off. So can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. We'll start the slideshow. All right, so I thought, what can I, be the best use of, while talking to engineering students back in India. And one of the things that came up to my mind is, we're all engineers, and at the end of the day, we are going to be, we'll end up building either a product or a service as we go into our professional careers. Be it an entrepreneur or you be part of a big MNC, it doesn't matter. There are two things that you're going to be doing. Either you build a product or a service. The one that I'm familiar with more is, being on the product side of things. So I'll talk a little bit about, some basics on how you build a global product. I'm drawing some lessons from my entrepreneurial experience. I built a mobile ed tech startup, early on in my career, and had an exit, and currently leading the product and engineering division at another big startup that just went public on Nasdaq just last year in October. So kind of I'll draw some key things or themes that worked for me in my career, and give it up, share that knowledge with you guys. If you think about basics of building a global product, you can always Google it and find the 30 things that a product organization would need, an entrepreneur would need, and etc. But there is no point in just reading those headlines and then keep going. So I thought I'll just share the 5 important things that worked for me and dive a little bit deeper. And of course, in the Q&A sessions, feel free to ask me more into each of those topics. But I thought I'll pick up those 5 topics and try to deep dive. And towards the end, I'll also give an example of a product that my team built, a very futuristic product that that kind of did wonders to the organization. So I thought I should share those those aspects with you all. Let's go to the first one. So let's say, what is a successful product? I think this probably needs to be defined first before we go deep. So I mean, the definition is self-explanatory here. A product that can solve a user's problems, acquires users quite quickly, and generates consistent value to the user by evolving with the user's needs. So the first thing is that the product should be solving a problem for the user. Otherwise, I'm not going to be using that. I mean, it needs to resonate well with the user to really strike that balance of, I'm going to pay for this product. Is it really worth my time and money in putting this product? I mean, this could apply to anything, be the Pepsi that you drink, or the movies that you watch on Netflix, or anything. It has to be worth your time and money. Only then there is going to be a product there. It needs to be evolving with your needs. If you don't keep iterating on the product and keep improving, because users behavior changes, user needs changes, so you got to be constantly working on the product and improving it. But I think most importantly, just because there is a good product market fit, etc., doesn't mean that the product becomes successful. The reason why I'm saying that is that a product as such, you can be successful, but is it sustainable is a bigger question to ask. And what I mean by sustainable is that the company that is building the product, is it worthwhile for the company to build the product, because the product should generate enough revenues to sustain the cost of building that product up, delivering the product to all the population, as well as probably bring in some kind of profit to the company. That's an important thing that was kind of mind-boggling to me. When I from engineering, when I went into business management, that was kind of really something very interesting, because as an engineer, I love to build all the cool technology products and keep doing that. A good example that came to my mind was the example of Hyundai Accent. I'm not sure if you guys are old, were even born at that time when a car called Hyundai Accent was there. It was back in the late 90s and early 2000s. The car was a great car. It was, it had, it was one of those unique designs and models that was launched in the Indian market. A really great model with all the different colors, etc. You would think that a car of that stature, it was priced at the right price point, it would become a huge success. But unfortunately, no. It was still facing stiff competition from companies like Maruti at that time. Again, not at this point, but at that time there was a Maruti 800 and the Maruti Zen. So those products were competing for the market share. And Hyundai Accent, despite being such a successful product, was really not able to make it work in the Indian market. So after a brief stint, they had to pull back the car, pull out from that segment and go on to other different cars like the SUVs. And today, I think there are electric vehicles from Hyundai. So that's an important aspect to think about. Just because it is an engineering marvel and you can be make it as cool as possible with all the latest technologies, doesn't mean that a sustainable business can be built. So that's why the key tenets of a product that I want to talk about, some three different things, are the product needs to be really communicated well to the audience. If you build all the complicated engineering marvels into that product and then think that the users will figure it out, that's not going to happen. You need to make sure the users can actually understand what the product can do. And this was also seen with the home AI assistants like Alexa and OK Google. When the products were initially launched, people were like, "What is it going to do for me? I'm not sure." Like, I just ask a bunch of questions and it's gonna, answer my questions most of the time wrong. So what do I do with it? It needed some kind of an education to prime the market, to really say that, yeah, your Alexa, if you can add a bunch of smart devices in your home, Alexa can start controlling your lights and your security systems and order stuff for you. So that kind of education needs to be done. So a new product will always need to be communicated well to the market and make sure the audience is primed. A product needs a good name. This is another important thing. I mean, your brand and the audience, and they need to, it needs to be catchy. It needs to, people need to be reminded. Like whenever I think about AI assistants, Alexa is the first thing that comes to my mind, because that's how popular people have made it. The name is also catchy, and it resonates with the market today. The product needs to be adaptable. Like I said, the product needs to keep evolving and keep meeting the users needs over time. So that's an important aspect. That's a slide I'll cover towards the end, called product life cycle. Like how every product launches, goes into a peak iteration, has the best success, makes the maximum revenue, and then eventually all that goes up will have to come down at some point, where it makes a maximum, and then there is a sunset period where the product becomes redundant, and the company has to move on to another product that makes more sense and become more relevant. That's always the case in business, in terms of launching and sunsetting product. All right, let's look at some examples of successful products. um, these are again self-explanatory. The logos talk for themselves. Apple is the best for the last 15, good 15, 17 years. Apple has pretty much taken over the entire smartphone market. Gone are the days, I think BlackBerry just shut down late last year. BlackBerry used to be one of those dominant players, and then if people remember Nokia phones no longer exists. Probably it does exist in some small shape or form, acquired by Microsoft, I think, in some lonely corner of the world. But BlackBerry was kind of providing some backend services until late last year, and I think the research in motion is what the parent company is called. I think they just shut down late last year. But Apple, that talks about Apple's tremendous success, and of course, Prime Video. There's another big product hit. Um, with Netflix also. There's another one of the first ones to provide a platform for online on-demand video content. Um, I mean, differentiating from the likes of YouTube, they were able to build a successful product there. I mean, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, I think everybody is addicted to it anyway, so we know that that's a big success. Google, Tesla, Tesla is one of those inspiring stories. I can keep talking about it. That probably will require another separate session. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. Tesla is one of those unique products at a time when electric vehicles. This is about 15 years back when Tesla had started. Electric vehicles were kind of facing a challenging time, and Tesla completely relied on how good the product is, and really went off to a tremendous a meteoric rise in the EV segment, and today is one of the largest market cap car companies in the world. I mean, I think last year they hit $1 trillion valuation. I mean, probably one of the fastest companies to do that in history. So that's what successful products look like. Now, that doesn't mean that we should always look at all the success and the bright things that these companies did. We should also look at some of the failed products, and it's one of the things you will learn in business is that it is important to look at your failures and learn from them, because for every successful product that you see on the market, there's probably like 10, 50, 100 different products that failed in the market. And that's basically how you quickly iterate, find the right product market fit. If you fail quickly, just learn from it and then move on to the next. Don't waste any time. Like the moment you learn the lesson, take those lessons with you and start the next project. So that's another important thing you'll have to learn in business. I mean, some examples being Google Glass. Again, some people might remember here, Google came up with the smart glass idea about 8 years ago, and it was the problem with the product is that it was too far ahead for its times. AI element in your eyeglass, constantly moving with you. Your assistants can be invoked through the Google Glass anytime, anywhere. That was a concept which was very, very ahead of its time, because Right now, if you see, Amazon just launched Echo Frames, and Echo Frames seems to be going pretty well for them. That didn't happen for Google Glass, unfortunately. So that because it was too ahead for its time, that the timing was not right, and the product market fit was just not there. So that was another failure. I mean, I didn't know this, but Colgate apparently came up with frozen dinners. I had no idea. I'm not sure why they even did that, but a toothpaste company trying to do that, but they did that and failed. So that was another interesting story there. And then there is bottled pet water. This is like I think we are in a world where I think people don't get good quality drinking water, but apparently pets are really being pampered these days. Bottled pet water was a thing, and it failed. You know, just kind of interesting that what kind of products come out in the markets. Oreo came up with the watermelon flavored biscuit. So these are all, and Harley Davidson came up with the perfume. I mean, like, when did all these things happen? Like, they're so fast to come to the market, and they go back. They're pulled back from the market at the same pace. So these are some interesting failed product ideas. But you should appreciate the ambition and the unique business opportunities that they were trying to capitalize on. I think those are some important lessons to observe and learn. As we see this, doesn't mean that they are doomed forever. Like, maybe, who knows, Coors Water might make a comeback. It might be a success. You just never know. Google Glass might probably be making a comeback. So you just never know in all of these areas. And this one is another famous example of Amazon coming up with its own smartphone. This was again about 5-6 years ago. The product was an amazing product with all those 3D camera capture technology. This was even before Facebook or Apple came up with those the 3D capture or the panoramic capture. Amazon was able to do that, but yet it failed because the app ecosystem that Google and Apple had was just humongous, and Amazon was not going to win that way because they were two big competitors ahead in the game already. So the product failed. Amazon's Fire phones. So let's go with some of the lessons that we learned. Nitish, do let me know if I'm good with time. I just need a heads up. I could keep going on. So
Sure.
let me know if I'm speaking too much.
Don't worry about that. Anyway, we're a little early on time. So if there's some more knowledge that you'd like to impart on the students, that'd be no issue at all.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So the first lesson that I would probably like to talk about is in building a product is to really identify the problem that you're trying to solve. So whenever there is you wanna come up with your own startup idea, or if you're working in a company and you're tasked with building a new product in the big company, start with the problem statement. What is that problem that you're trying to solve? Are you trying to are you trying to solve the problem of students learning anytime, anywhere? Is there a problem there? Like, are students struggling to do that today? Start from the basics. It's a theory of first principles. Always start with the basics. Today there are some private space companies coming up in India. For example, like, if you think about the space technology problems, it has always been that space technology is very, very expensive, and you need big billion-dollar budgets to do that. Only then can you be successful. And that's a problem. The problem here is, because of those big budgets, for the common man, space is really not that accessible. Now that problem statement is being worked on by a couple of Indian startups. I think there is a company called Agnico, based in Chennai, which is coming up with its own indigenous rocket engine. That's the first time a private space company in India is building its own rocket engine. I think they were able to even successful in the first testing that they did. So if things like that happen, the cost of launching rockets is just gonna drastically go down. I think ISRO has already done a great job of getting the costs of launching rockets quite down. Now with the entry of private space companies solving for that particular problem of budgetary issues, it's the possibilities are just going to be endless, because launching a satellite or micro satellites will only become cheaper for companies. First, it's going to be for all the decently sized big companies can probably launch their own satellites for communications, or their own internet internet relays, etc. And then pretty soon you'll be seeing that the mid-sized companies will start accessing it, and then pretty soon you'll see that probably even the common man will start accessing it, just like how it is easy today to fly around the world, and it's so affordable. It has become affordable because of the entry of private enterprises innovating constantly and coming up with new business models and ideas. So that's the kind of thinking you should have when you start with a product idea. It's called the theory of first principles, which is start with the basics of what is the problem, and then build towards that solution to find that right product market fit. So how do you identify the product market fit? Like it's easier to say, like just identify the problem and then keep going with it, but there is a method to it, and this method, it requires a lot of data analysis, curating data, spending time with your actual user, who is that audience whom you're trying to understand. I think solving for that with them is going to be very, very important, spending a good amount of time. So that's why, while building a product, one of the key functions is of the product manager. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this will end up becoming a product manager at some point in their career, or go into core engineering. But when product managers' job is to spend as much time as possible with that target user or customer, and really understand what are the unique ways the user is using the current product. Is there an opportunity for a new product? If there is an opportunity for a new product, what exactly does the solution for that problem look like? What exactly is the user looking to do? So understanding all of that is going to be a key functionality of the product manager. And this could be done by a few ways. One is to start with is the general market research and surveys. There are companies like Gallup, and you can use Survey Monkeys to use surveys. There are tools like Userlytics and user testing, where you can ask some questions and get some feedback on that. Run a product idea and get some feedback on that, or pay some users to come onto the platform and talk to them about some of those key problem statements that you can prepare. Like, is this a problem for you? Like, do you need help with this in your daily life? Is there a need for another smart device in your home? So these are all questions you can use tools like these to understand what the user is doing. The good thing about these tools is that you can identify the segment that you want. Like, I would like to find 50 people in the age range of 21 to 35, probably working class male and females, probably with kids, without kids. So you can really tweak the kind of customers you're trying to look at and narrow down that population, and so that you can really test that product idea with a target audience that you have in mind. That's one way to do it. The other way is to really physically bring in people for focus group interviews with your target audience. And focus group interviews are very, very common in the corporate world. Like, for example, like Coca-Cola, for example, whenever they want to come up with new flavors of soft drinks, they go through extensive focus group interviews, where they'll have 2 or 3 versions of the product, the soft drink flavor that they are going to be testing, and identify 3 or 4 focus groups and give each of them a different version of it, and then collect the feedback and say which one did better in the focus group. And then they can keep repeating it until it reaches some statistical significance, and then identify the version of that soft drink flavor that did really well. And that's how they start launching the product. and scaling that particular flavor everywhere. So this is how corporates function whenever they're launching new products. And that's essential for startups too. If you have a startup in mind, you want to be an entrepreneur, this is one way to start building your product. uh, Design sprints with key stakeholders. This is design sprint is it's kind of like a unique workshop, which is a collaboration between the product department, the product managers, product folks, and the product designers. We call them UI UX researchers. Stands for user interface or user research, user researcher. They're the ones who develop the front end designs or help with all the market research, and really come up with studies or research methodologies to identify the customer segment. And the product person is the one who uses the data to start crafting a product solution and a product roadmap. So these two functions come together and lead what is called a design sprint. In the design sprint, again, you start with the problem statement. It's usually like a 3 to 4 day workshop, where in one conference room for 3 to 4 days, the designers, product managers, along with the core customer group you're targeting, and a cross-functional group from across the organization, be it marketing, engineers, etc. They all come together in a room, spend the next 3 to 4 days brainstorming on the problem statement, how many solutions can we come up with, and towards the end of it, a high level solution would be built from that 3 to 4 days. Like, okay, for this problem, this is the solution that we need to be building. And that high level solution then goes into what is called hackathon projects that we conduct, where engineering teams, 2 or 3 engineering teams, will focus on that problem and try to build that high level solution that you came up with. And then you select the best prototype that comes out of those hackathon projects, and that prototype becomes what is called your alpha prototype. So that's the next point here, which is build a high level product prototype and allow the users to interact with it. An alpha prototype is really a low for technology products. It's more of a low code lift. Like, out of a design sprint, we don't expect you to build the entire product out of it. Like, if you came up with the product with the idea of an Amazon platform, we don't expect you to just build the whole Amazon platform in a few days and only then go to the market. No, if it's a new product, you build a low code prototype and start testing it out with a small segment of your users in the market, get feedback, and then you improve that alpha prototype into and make it a better prototype, and that is when it goes into beta products. You might have seen that the beta tag in a lot of new products, be it Amazon, Flipkart, or any of the companies. You'd see whenever they're testing something new, you will see something called a beta tag on those products. It means that product is still not fully built. You are probably one of the guinea pigs trying to use the product, and they're going to get some good feedback from that. So yeah, and these prototypes are helpful in gathering the data and iterating the product. So what you do is, as you look at when in an alpha prototype, let's start there. Like, whenever the user is using in the back end, you as a product manager or a UX researcher, you're going to be seeing all the data of how the user is behaving in the platform. Are they opening the home page? Are they going into the page that you wanted them to see? Are they using the product? How long are they using the product? You're going to get all those insights from analytical tools behind the scenes. So with that kind of information, you can keep iterating on the product. Like, if a user goes to the home screen, goes to the second page, and then abandons the product, I'm not using it anymore, you can see that and ask the question, probably ask that user, like, hey, it looks like you abandoned the product. Is there something wrong? How can we improve? How can we help? Asking those qualitative questions and improving the product to make the product more engaging, and making sure the users' problems are we're solving for the user's problem, etc. And go with that. So that is quite important as we look at the data and iterate on the product. And then again, the last step is to repeat the steps. This is a part of the build, measure, learn loop, which I'll go discuss in the next slide, where you keep repeating these steps until the high-level solution that you came up with resonates really well with more than 50% of your market. That's probably when you know that, okay, we are on to something. I think there is something here which we can really build up on. So the next lesson is, really the build, measure, learn loop, which is kind of what I said. Build a high-level product prototype. So the ideally it's called the agile methodology, agile development methodology, where your build phase lasts for 2 weeks. Build a product prototype for 2 weeks with all the codes that you want. Build that high-level product. Launch it into your alpha or beta target customer group. Measure what's going on in the product. Collect the data and learn what the data is telling you, and use that data to funnel the next sprint of the build on the same product, so that all those lessons you learned goes into the next version or the next iteration of the product. And then you go on to the build phase again, another 2 weeks of building. Build the next version 2 of the product, launch it, measure it for a week or so, learn it for a week or so, and then implement it again. So if you keep doing this again and again and again and again, the product is going to become so good that you you kind of narrow that product market fit, and eventually you will come closer to that product market fit and be like, this is the product that the user wants, and this is what we need to be launching, and we're onto something, and the product can make it big. So that is the whole mantra of this particular, the circle that I'm showing you, the BML loop. I'm pretty sure this is the basics of product management, and this is, if at all there is one good takeaway from this presentation, that will be this particular model of building new products. And this doesn't apply to just the technology product. It can apply to any product that you will end up building in your careers. So, like I said, how do you execute the product loop? The first iteration is always called the MVP, the minimum viable product. Like, in 2 weeks, how can you develop the product? The bare minimum that can just solve the user's problem. You don't have to solve everything, but can just solve the user's problem, that is enough to get the attention of the user and start using the product. Then you do it with your alpha beta groups, like I said, gather and study the data, improve the products, and start funneling all those learnings from the data into your next feature backlog. And you implement the features, repeat, and until you come to what we call the MLP, which is called the minimum lovable product, where the users are, more than 50% of your users are kind of happy with the product that you launched, and and then you also have the significant statistical significance to say, yes, there is something here. A good way to test a minimum lovable product is to see which of the users you're targeting and you've been iterating on the product for are at least willing to pay $1 for that minimum product that you just built. Because this is the best part about alpha and beta prototypes, because there is an actual product here, as opposed to just doing a bunch of surveys and trying to see what is a good product. Because in general surveys and focus group, I can go talk to 50 different people and say, hey, what do you think about this particular product? Do you like it? And people will always be like, they don't want to hurt your feelings, right? And they'll be like, oh, I love the product idea that you just came up with. I'll buy it if you launch the product. It's great. So there is a good chance that people just lie just to make you happy. That's the one problem with qualitative surveys. But in actual physical prototypes, like the alpha and beta prototypes that you end up building, you can actually test. I mean, I see that these people are using it, but do they really want it? If they really want it, they will be able to take it. They'll be able to take their credit cards and swipe it and pay you at least $1 for that prototype that you just built. That is the best, test for how good, your product success could be. So that's another. Those are all smoke screen tests, is what we call. How good do the conversions? How good the conversions are when users are using the product. So the third lesson would be to know when to launch your product. Like I said, when you have this big grandeur vision for a product, you don't have to wait until you fulfill that entire vision. I mean, for a product vision, sometimes it could just take several years to go there. You don't have to wait until those several years to launch the product. Instead, you can build the first couple of versions, identify a good product market fit, and see if there is a business, there is a business model behind that first or second version of the product, and you keep building towards that big product vision that you're going after. I'll discuss a few examples to give you some clarity on what that means. Um, so, like I said, if you wait for a few years to for launch your first version of the product, investors are probably won't be thrilled that they're gonna give you all the money and then you're gonna run that for the next 5 years, and then after the 5 years you might even say that, oh, the product actually failed, sorry about that. So they want to see immediate returns, and the best way to do that is to start testing, to start putting the initial versions of the product with a good product market fit to uh, build some kind of a business, not a sustainable business. It can be a business that is losing money too, but if it shows the promise of growth, we can take the company forward, because this will probably require another session about how venture capitalists work. Um, um, that's a different way to think about it. But in general, you don't have to wait for the entire solution to be built out. So this is where another thing is a soft launch versus a hard launch. The difference here is that a soft launch is when, if your target audience is, let's say, 10 million people is your target audience who can use your product, you don't have your first version of the product. You don't have to just launch it to all of them, all of them at once, because in especially in technology, some of your backend systems won't even be built out to sustain a 10 million population getting onto your product. Your product will just crash and burn. So the best way to test it is to scale it slowly by, maybe 1% of the population first gets the product, and then you make sure test the backend systems to see if it is able to handle the load, and then you slowly start increasing the whole to the whole population. So that's when a hard launch is for the entire 100% of the market. That can happen at a later time, but a soft launch is essential if you want to, especially as you're building the infrastructure, it is going to be important. This applies even to the big companies with all the robust infrastructure that they have. You just want to be really careful because you don't want the first launch of your product to be a failure, just because a lot of people got onto it, not because the product was not great, but because the product was crashing every time people try to log in and log in. So this is another way to think about it. This is an important product strategy as you iterate on the product and take the product to the market. So it is important to follow these methodologies. So, like I said, two good examples of products that didn't have to just wait to you have this big grandeur vision, but you didn't have to wait for all that long to launch the product. The first example I'll probably talk about Virgin Galactic, for example. Sir Richard Branson launched the first American private space tourism company, first private space tourism trip last year, and then SpaceX and Amazon, everybody followed for tourism, especially. But Virgin Galactic was the first one to go for space tourism. SpaceX has been for the last 5-6 years they've been doing amazingly successful launches. But Virgin Galactic is going towards space tourism. Now, here's the thing: Virgin Galactic started about 15 or 20 years ago, and only last year was their first successful space tourism trip. Now, you might ask, what were they doing for the last 15 years? How could they sustain themselves? So this is where the product launch idea comes into picture. 15 years ago, they started it with the vision that they want to go towards space tourism, but rocket technologies and building these new aircrafts, it's not an easy thing. It's going to take years and years of engineering work to do that, to get there. So one of the ways they did was the first few years, the first a couple of years of the company was into growth mode. And growth mode is basically where your venture capitalists are pouring in money for your company to build the product and just keep growing. Don't worry about profits or business or revenues, because you can't. They know that they're in this for the long haul, so they just pour in money to take you on a growth mode. As a result, after the first couple of years, what they ended up realizing is that they had built some of the best training facilities as they were building these spaceships and recruiting astronauts. They built some of the best training facilities for astronauts. All of a sudden, they have a product in their hands, which is to train astronauts from NASA, ISRO, the cosmonauts from the Soviet Union, but Russia and Ukraine. So all of a sudden they have an astronaut training program built out. So that became a product of its own for Virgin Galactic. So that was the first initial revenue maker, right? That was one. A few years later, they developed some technologies where they were able to, some of their engineers did something like a hackathon project internally, and they found that, you know what, we can actually start launching low cost satellites from a modified Boeing 747 and launch them into space, lightweight Boeing satellite. So Launcher One is the satellite launcher, and this is a modified Virgin Atlantic, the Virgin Airlines. They owned Boeing 747. So they were able to build a company called Virgin Orbit from Virgin Galactic. So it's a small spin-off that came up, and Virgin Orbit just went public again late last year. So that was a successful satellite launch company. So that's a second product of Virgin Galactic. And here's the thing: they still haven't come to space tourism yet, and all of a sudden they have two different products being launched at the same time. And then finally, with all that revenue is coming in and still being in growth mode, finally they launched the space tourism spaceship 2 in this case, that went out last year. So that is how you keep building the product. And a similar story with SpaceX too. The first thing that they did was lower the cost of rocket launches in the US, and in the process they found that they can they can, because their launch costs are so low, they can launch these satellite internet satellites up there, and they started a company called Starlink, which is scaling up quite rapidly and is becoming a good revenue stream for them. And later on then built the Dragon capsule, which is today best the best mode of transport for the US astronauts to go to the ISS and do any kind of research projects or any kind of rocket launches. All of this at the time when SpaceX is still not fulfilled its vision. And SpaceX vision is to establish a colony on Mars. That's what they're going after. They're not stopping until that is the biggest goal that they have. And all of the things that you see, the Dragon capsule, Starlink, etc., are happening as a result of going towards that vision. So that's an example of a good product launch and strategy. So the next lesson I would like to share with you is scale, scale, and scale. Once you found this product application, you did that right, you launched it, did that right, soft launch, check, hard launch, check. Now what do? Or you go towards scaling it and scaling it and scaling it globally. And you do that by entering new markets. And new markets, when you go there, you will need some kind of localization and customization. And this is quite common these days. Think about the Prime Video example. The content that you see in India is very different from the content that you see in the US or in Europe or in Africa. All of these are content that is localized to that local markets, and you start scaling that, because otherwise you're going to have a bunch of local competitors. I mean, in India's case, we have very good competitors like Hotstar, for example, right? There are all these local competitors are also going to eat into your segments. That's why any company, if you start a company and you want to get into the US markets or European markets, you got to tweak that product and enter the market. I think companies like Freshworks, which just went public last year, is an example. There is Zoho Corporation, another good example. They have the India suites, the US suite. There is some kind of localized difference when you enter into each of these market segments. Scaling strategies, I mean, in general, again, there are two ways, right? If you're going to be starting your own company, like that's probably what this graph is more relevant to. Raise your money from the idea for the idea from friends and family. Then you go through incubators to build a prototype, raise seed rounds to build a good model strategy, and you go to large investors like the venture capital firms to scale the product to a wider and wider audience. But in case of a big MNC that is launching a new product, cash isn't really a problem because they already have the cash. So you're probably somewhere just looking at the scaling. You have to go through these phases of prototype building and idea generation, etc. But cash flow isn't really a problem for you guys when you're in a big company and trying to build a new product. Again, like I said, this might take another presentation if I start talking about venture capitals. But in general, one thing I've noticed is that the best innovation comes out when there are constraints in the amount of cash, and you're really put into some of this constraint situation. If you are given too much money for a new idea, you many times you don't really come up with the best ideas. It's kind of like probably the money really pampers you, that you kind of take an easy role and have a laid back attitude, because that's the reason why smaller startups scale quite rapidly and even challenge the biggest of companies, because of that, because smaller startups have the back against the wall, and they need to innovate if they have to survive. But whereas for big companies, they really don't have to, because they're already having big money. They're in a complacent mode. When that happens, all of a sudden you see the underdog becoming the bigger dog, and then taking on these big companies. It has happened several times, right? The rise of Amazon or Google, Flipkart in India, all of these big companies scaled up when other big companies were pretty much relaxed and not really innovating.
Just a
Optimization,
heads up, Karthik,
sure.
we have around 5 minutes more on the presentation, 5-10.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll just run through this. So the other big lesson here is optimization, operational efficiency. So building a sustainable business with enough cash flows and profits. Like I said, just because you build an engineering product that is cool doesn't and that is solving a problem doesn't mean you're already that's a good business. You need to make sure if you're in growth mode, yeah, maybe losing revenue is fine, losing money is fine for the investors, but if you are a publicly traded company or anything, you need to show the profits and build a sustainable business as you keep scaling the company. So that's an important aspect to think about. And the three P's is an important aspect. No matter what product you build or what company you go for, no matter what it is, these three P's are important, and this is what leads to successful companies. The right people, profits, of course, and sustainable future. So these are three important tenets to build a successful business. So in summary, identifying the problem, the build, measure, learn loop, know when to launch your products, scale, and optimization, operational efficiency. These are the five big takeaways I can give you guys today. And this is the product lifecycle management. Like I said, any idea you come up with, you're going to scale it, make it a successful business, and it's going to have a heyday. And at some point, it's going to come down, and you have to sunset it. It's the case with every single product you launch. In fact, one visionary statement that Jeff Bezos mentioned about Amazon was that the role of management today is to make sure Amazon's end date. There will come a time in the future when there is a last day for Amazon, when the company will just go bankrupt or get beyond get into oblivion, just like a Nokia or Research in Motion or the Sears Corporation. That day is going to come, but the goal of the management is to extend that deadline as long as possible. I mean, that's a true visionary statement that a man like Jeff Bezos was able to mention. And the companies could survive only if you keep innovating at the pace at which the rest of the market is innovating. So I was gonna go to just a quick example of a 3D product that my team had built. Nitish, can we take just 3 minutes? I'm just gonna show a quick video, and we can end there.
Sure, no issues,
Okay.
Karthik.
This is a product that we built with medical professors. The problem here was that they were teaching human anatomy to medical students in medical institutions by cutting open, the human cadavers, right? That's how doctors learn. I mean, my parents are doctors, and I know how they learned it. The problem with those is that getting human cadavers is not easy. It's expensive, and it's becoming more and more of a shortage problem. The second thing is that professors can't really see whether how good you're dissecting, do the heart, or when you're performing a surgery, how good you're practicing. There is no better way. It's just through observations. So we came up with a 3D based product at Kaplan. This was before I joined Udemy. I was previously at a company called Kaplan, which is quite famous in India, by the way, for medical education, GMAT, GRE, etc. So we built a 3D product here. This is the product that we came at. This is the first version of the product that we built. Just let me know if you can hear the audio.
Yeah, it's audible.
So that's an example of a first version of the human anatomy product that we built. I mean, imagine the scale. Everybody can access this anywhere, anytime, especially during COVID when people couldn't go to the medical schools to cut open the cadaver. They can learn human anatomy sitting in front of their computer. Right? That's the first version. The vision for this product is to actually get into the Oculus Rift, the Oculus Rift, Microsoft HoloLens, wear those and perform surgeries in real life situations, and train even surgeons before going into the operation theater to perform surgeries, to practice the surgery in their VR headset, and then go with that. So I'll probably end with the last vision.
So the common expression when people first put how
with the last with the vision clip that we developed, and I'll end the session there. Just for 2 minutes, Nitish. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
lens on is usually, wow, I can't believe this.
Oh my God. Very cool.
In terms of surgery and medical education, I think being able to visualize things in 3D is just so much more than any textbook can offer.
You put it on, you don't want to take it off. You can see right away all the different opportunities.
Virtual reality is when you put on a set of goggles. You can be placed on something like planet Mars. HoloLens is an augmented reality system. You can actually see through the goggles, but then what it has is another set of lenses that project another image, which is the hologram.
Right now, we use these loops, and all they are magnifying glasses, really to augment our reality by magnifying it. With the HoloLens, it does the same thing, but to the next degree.
So let's say that we have a patient on the table and we want to do some type of intervention. Using augmented reality, we can superimpose data onto that patient, say their CAT scan or MRI.
And putting them all together and integrating them to really come up with this virtual three-dimensional see-through model.
The technology itself could be pretty game-changing. There are a tremendous number of ways that you can actually use augmented reality to help patients.
What we're developing in the lab is microwave ablation of cancerous tumors in the lungs using HoloLens. So it's a way of guiding the surgeon to the target without using radiation.
If you're able to sync what you're looking at with what's going on in real time, you're able to treat different kinds of tumors, larger tumors in more challenging places. You're really able to change the cancer care continuum.
The technology in our lab is at the point of, by the end of this year, we'll be able to use it in a operating setting to actually help in the treatment.
Pre-op, post-op.
I have no doubt that this technology will be utilized. It's just a matter of in how many different ways and who's going to be utilizing it.
Some people like football, some people like golf. I like the sport of bringing innovation together with the engineers and the clinicians, thinking beyond what is here now. That's the exciting and I think the magic of the Cleveland Clinic.
So great. So that's the vision. That's the product vision that's in beta at Cleveland Clinic. I'm sure they will probably start scaling the product even further. That's a product that my team had built. So like I said, the product vision was to use this Oculus Rift and HoloLens to perform all the surgeries and etc. But we didn't really wait until then. We launched the 3D version of the product already, which is not a HoloLens or a VR enabled product, but still it was a success. So those are examples of how you launch and scale the products. With that, I'll end the session. Nitish, it's all yours.
That was a really insightful session.